Hello, welcome to another Album of Record podcast. I'm Craig, joined as always by Andrew. How's it going, Andrew?
I am of two minds, Craig. I, on the one hand, am not necessarily thrilled about the projected 12 to 15 inches of snow we are scheduled to get Saturday and Sunday. But I will say, on the other hand, I'm really excited to have a weekend where I don't need to go anywhere. As you know, I coach 8th grade boys basketball, and we had our last regular season games last weekend. And this weekend, we have a bye week until the tournament starts. So this is the first weekend since, I think, October that I've got nothing going on. So the snowstorm, I don't care. I'm not leaving the house anyways. Hit me with your best shot.
Yeah, and up here in Cleveland, we got almost 2 feet of snow a week ago in like a 24-hour period. So it's kind of, I guess it was a week ago Monday. So it's almost 2 weeks ago. And so we're just kind of used to it. And that's the thing. Is like the less used to it you are, the bigger of a deal it is. But the real question is, do you have 48 eggs, a gallon of milk, and 2 loaves of Wonder Bread at your disposal?
Yeah, I got to do that this weekend. I have some bread. I've got bread. Yeah.
Most American kitchens and pantries, in your American kitchen pantry has so much food. Like, it might not be your first choice, but you could survive 3-4 weeks on crackers from 6 weeks ago and
Campbell's
whatever
soup.
else.
Yeah. In the back of the pantry, but break out the old Campbell soup cans. Yeah, I can find food.
People lose their minds.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got some fun music stuff to talk about. But first, you and I, before we started, we're talking about how much in just a couple of weeks we already missed IndieCast.
Yeah. Can
you give everybody the backstory first?
Yeah. So IndieCast was, I think, both of our favorite music podcasts that we listen to every single week. It's Stephen Hayden and Ian Cohn, and it was a part of Uprocks, and Uprocks made the decision that they weren't going to do that podcast anymore. They weren't going to support it, and so it was going to go away. It went away.
Which is really funny, by the way, because that podcast also never had advertising on it, and it was like, well, did you guys even try?
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway,
but that's another subject. But it was always a part of my Saturday morning routine. So in my Saturday mornings, I would wake up, and it was like the first thing I'd do, make some coffee, and I'd listen to the episode while going through my lazy Saturday morning routine. And, when they announced they were going away, I was, of course, bummed. But, it's like, well, that's life. Nothing lasts forever in life. But what I've found is my Saturday mornings feel so empty without it. I am shocked how much I miss it. And I feel like I don't know what to do on my Saturday mornings. Like, it feels so weird to not be able to listen to it.
So part of my 2026 is that I'm listening to a lot more audiobooks and a lot fewer podcasts, because, to be honest, every podcast has turned into the same thing in terms of being political or political adjacent.
Except this one.
Except this one. And IndieCast was one of the last bastions of where they stuck to their topic. They talked about music. They made recommendations. They talked about albums. And unless it was absolutely necessary, they didn't talk about politics. So I wasn't going to do away with a podcast like that.
Yeah.
And so I miss it more than ever, where I was already going to take a big break from a lot of podcasts. This would have been one of the ones that would have survived, because it truly hits on something that gives me joy. I learn something from it. I have things to listen to. And most of all, I do miss the banter and the conversation that those guys would have, but I miss Recommendation Corner.
Yes.
Where, Ian and Steven would give us stuff, and sometimes I would hate it and sometimes I would love it. But it was always like you could trust the recommendation, even if you ended up not liking what was recommended.
And for my tastes, Steven's, it was pretty rare for me to be into his picks, which is fine. We just have different tastes in music. But Ian's were often, even if it wasn't something I was going to go back to, it was almost always something I was glad I was at least exposed to and listened to. And, I have found that, my Spotify algorithm is fine, but I miss the Ian Cohen recommendation. But
I do too. And I'm sure you could pick up a number of recommendations per week from following him on Twitter, but a lot of people are avoiding Twitter these days as well. See
Yeah.
why I'm leaving podcasts a little bit behind this year.
Was there
Go ahead.
you mentioned though, I'm curious about your podcast listening habit. We really haven't talked about this that much. I don't actually know your podcast listening habits. Did you have like ones that you were like listening to every week no matter what, or were you more of a I subscribe to everything and I just pick the episodes that are interesting to me?
No, I'm a completist. So if I'm subscribed to a podcast, I'm attempting to listen to every episode. If I go a couple of weeks where I can't get up the desire to listen to I unsubscribe. You're gone from the feed.
Okay.
Maybe I'll think to come back, or I'll hear about a guest and I'll pop back in. My favorite podcasts that I'm not giving up are like Bomani Jones. Even when he does veer into politics, I just love Bomani Jones. He's so good. But yeah, like all the sports and culture podcasts, and I really do love a couple of Supreme Court podcasts, but those used to be more technical and very by the book about the law. And now those have gotten political. And I know it might sound strange to think about a legal podcast that could not be political. But if you're talking about like nuts and bolts law, is this legal? Is it not? It's kind of beyond politics. But sometimes those podcasts get political anyway.
Yeah. I'm a little bit of a blend. I have a couple podcasts that I listen to every episode. Smartless is one I pretty much listen to. By the way, they had the Pixies on this week, which was a fascinating listen because it's the longest interview I've ever heard with them. So I thought that was actually really interesting and well done.
That's one of the biggest platforms that band has ever had.
For sure, without a doubt. And so that one and Freakonomics, I listen to almost everything, but there'll be a few. Again, speaking of politics, I had to turn off. They did an interview with the current FDA head, and there were some opinions in there being presented that weren't really being fact checked. And I was like, I'm not going to veer this one into politics, but I was like, I think I need to skip this one. But I listen to most of those. But then there's other ones like Bill Simmons. I have his podcast I subscribe to, and I mostly just pick if there's somebody, like if he has Chuck Klosterman on, I'll listen. I listen to him and Cousin Sal do their
How
picks.
frustrating is it that when he titles those podcasts, he doesn't lead with a guest?
I know, he buries it in the after the ... and it's like, dude, come on, man.
If Chuck Klosterman's going to be on that podcast, it needs to be the headline, the first thing.
Yeah, for sure. Which, by the way, he was on just this week or last week. Chuck's got a new book out about football. So I
heard him on a different podcast, actually, and only because I saw his name.
Yeah, I'm really excited to check out this book because he has a very interesting take on sports, and I appreciate it because he's like, Chuck is so because like, I don't mean this as a compliment or an insult. It's just Chuck does not rub you as the type of person immediately that would be such a huge sports fan. And he has a very interesting take on a lot of sports that I really appreciate. And so
let me tell you about one of the most annoying experiences I ever had with a Chuck Klosterman book.
Okay.
And you're going to appreciate this anyway, because it's so very much Chuck Klosterman. I'm an audiobook guy, so it was an audiobook, and I can't remember which one it was, but he decided that he would like to have the book read by a British woman. And so it was so impossible and disconcerting to listen to Chuck Klosterman's words coming from a British woman's voice, because I know his voice. He spent so many hours on podcasts. And so I just shut it off. I couldn't do it.
That's so funny. He has a very distinct voice, too. He doesn't sound like anybody else either.
But that's exactly the kind of decision that he would make.
Without a doubt. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So there's no good transition, but let's get into some music. So one of the first big records to come out in 2026 on January 9th was Zach Bryan, the alt country stadium rocker. Another 25 track record that leads with just, can we start with the bad stuff first?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
These spoken word tracks to start your record. Enough. You get it. No more.
It's cursory for Zach at this point. You're going to get it. But Like, I will even say what he is saying is actually, I think, fairly well written. Like, it's a well written poem. And, you know, I don't begrudge that. It's not bad writing. But when you hit play on a Zach Bryan album, like you want to listen to the music. You don't want to spend your first 2 minutes just listening to a spoken word track. But that's like, nobody's going to tell Zach Bryan what to do. And we'll get into that perhaps being a little bit of an issue for him. Maybe he needs some no men around him or no women around him to edit him a little bit, perhaps. But yeah, the spoken word tracks don't seem like they're going anywhere. So
yeah, so 25 tracks strong, this record. And like, I'll give you my review first. It's good. It's solid Zach Bryan. I guess the only thing that I would say is that I didn't hear, it's kind of funny to say in this day and age when singles don't exist anyway, but I didn't hear any singles. Not a lot of it felt as memorable as maybe some of the stuff from his last record, in terms of, oh yeah, that's a hit. That one will be on playlists. That one will be here, there, and everywhere.
I don't think there's any Pink Skies or 28 on this one.
But overall, it was just like a really pleasant listen.
Yeah. So I went into this feeling like I was ready to kind of be done with Zach Bryan. I was like, you know what? Really loved his last 2 albums. Maybe that's all I need. I don't know that I need more Zach Bryan. There's reasons for it. And I don't want to come across like, I don't want to say that I dislike Zach Bryan as a person, but I don't know that I like him as a person either. He's a very, very enigmatic person, hard to pin down who he actually is. Because you got to remember, you only see, for the most part, the social media portrayals of these people. But, there's just always just unnecessary drama around him trying to fight other artists, hopping a fence to fight somebody, his much publicized breakup with, what was her name? Chicken Fry.
Just Brianna Chicken Wing or something. I mean, I feel dumber for having to know that and say it aloud.
But when you end up like in a pseudo proxy battle with Dave Portnoy, like, that's not my lane. So I'm going to be annoyed by all of that. And I don't know, like, I was just like, I'm just not really, I almost hit play on it, ready to dislike it, like looking for reasons to dislike this album. It's not rational. It's not fair. It's not how I usually approach albums, but it's just kind of the mood I was in. And
I think it's maybe a little bit rational.
maybe, but I was ready to dislike this album, and I like this album a lot. And Zach
he's such a good songwriter.
The dude can just write songs. And like, again, a lot of these songs, as always, this is always the case with him. A lot of his songs feel sort of in an unfinished state. Like, sometimes the songs just end. Like, he does that a lot, where like you're expecting it to go into this next part and it just kind of ends. And you're like, oh, did they not finish that song or whatever? But he can just write for days. I mean, just endlessly interesting songs. And on this album, this is not more of the same. Whether your people like this as much as his other stuff, he added a lot of depth to this album sonically, a lot more horns than what we've heard in the past. And, just mixing in different, it feels a little bit more of a band album. And what's funny is, because of that, he actually put out this whole album acoustic too. So there's an acoustic version out there now, if you want to hear just him and his guitar playing all of these songs. And then that one, I really think it's funny that version, he did that first, and then at the end he tacked on the regular version. So if you really want the 50 song 2.5 hour version of With Heaven on Top, you can get that. And that's where I do still think Zach would be well suited to have a producer, an editor, somebody to say, hey, let's finish this song. Let's cut out some of the maybe a little bit more filler type tracks. But I got to be honest, like, I really liked this album, and I liked that he didn't have a lot of guests on this album, and especially because of what happened.
Because when he has a falling out, he doesn't have to delete them from the record later.
Re-record it with a different person who's not as good as the original. Yeah, so I don't know, like, I think I said to you, he's just an undeniable force of nature. And that's just kind of what it feels like to me. Like that guy was put on this earth to do one thing, and that's to write these kind of songs and write them really well in a way that's just enjoyable to listen to. And I've listened to this album quite a lot already this year, and way more than I expected going in. So kudos to Zach Bryan. He's just really, really, really good at what he does. I don't know how to put it into context. Like, is this my favorite Zach Bryan album? I don't know, probably not. But it in some ways
still astonishes me a little bit. And I think this is important context for the audience. It still blows me away to some degree that you are such a big fan of this guy. Like, it's a little bit alt country for you.
It is, for sure.
The songwriting, the singer-songwriter part of it drew you in and kept you there.
And it's also his voice too. I like that he's not a traditional singer. He doesn't, like, you're not going to mistake him for anybody else when you hear his voice. He's got enough imperfection in his voice that gives it like that dirtiness that I like, as opposed to, say, like we've talked about, like, one of my problems I have with Bon Iver.
Dude, you can hear the alcohol and cigarettes.
Yes. Whereas Bon Iver is like pristine. It's perfect. Like it's almost angelic.
See, and I couldn't possibly disagree more, because I don't think Bon Iver is perfect at all. I think you hear all the little guttural things in that imperfect falsetto.
I just don't hear it that way. That's great. That's interesting. Like when I hear Bon Iver, I hear like I said, a very angelic sound. And
when I think of Bon Iver, I think it's very like crunchy and organic for what it is.
Yeah, that's funny. That's just not how it.
Yeah, it's interesting
how my brain processes it. So, but yeah, it's definitely. I don't listen to anything else really like Zach, and I can't really fully articulate clearly as I'm stumbling over my words here, but trying to like say what it is that I just appreciate so much about it. But yeah, it's just that there's a certain earthiness to it that I like. And like I said, that, or maybe you said it best, the alcohol and cigarettes kind of country sound. I think I don't know, it just works for me, I guess. So
yeah, well, and there's something to be said about how tangential or deep into the country universe Zach Bryan is.
Mm-hmm.
Where you and I should feel a little bit uncomfortable in that zone.
Oh yeah,
like those are not our people.
Yeah,
Zach Bryan is the only place where we cross over with a huge portion of the people who went to his stadium shows.
Yeah,
I wouldn't know the top 4 artists. Like, what's the circles? What's the crossover between Zach Bryan and Morgan Wallen?
Yeah, because I don't know.
I've got zero Morgan Wallen in my life. Zero.
Same.
And I don't mean to be like a total dismissive jerk about it, but like, I really don't like that guy. I really don't like pop country. But I do like Zach Bryan.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's a testament to his songwriting, of course. But I was gonna ask you, so I can't remember if it was Stereo Gum or Pitchfork. I think it was the Pitchfork review. But one of them was talking about, like, said something about like these songs that aren't like good enough to be mainstream hits or something like that. And I was like, isn't Zach Bryan mainstream? Is Zach Bryan not mainstream?
Well, the mainstream, as people remember it, doesn't exist. And so I think if you're looking at an antiquated version of the mainstream, where I guess the last artist who's truly mainstream is probably Taylor Swift. Maybe Olivia Rodrigo, but Zach Bryan sells comparable numbers of tickets.
Yeah.
But
he played the biggest show in the history of music.
But he's kind of counter mainstream at the same time.
It is an interesting dynamic to think about, because it's like, but like, if you walk down the street and ask people if they've ever heard of Madonna.
Well, hang on. Let me put it this way. So instead of comparing him to Taylor Swift, let's talk about Noah Kahan. So Noah Kahan is kind of in the same zone, very acoustic, singer-songwriter. He is more polished, has more hits. He is more mainstream than Zach Bryan, even though Zach Bryan might be more popular.
Yeah. Do you have Spotify open by any chance? Can you look at their monthly listeners while I just say, I don't know if you walk down the street and ask people if they're familiar with Zach Bryan, like how many people are actually going to say, yes, they're familiar with him. But it's weird thing that he then plays these just absolutely massive shows.
I love it when the numbers make my point perfectly. So
Okay.
Zach Bryan has 27 million monthly listeners. Noah Khan has 24.
Yeah,
But who's more mainstream? So Noah Khan's the one who played Fenway Park 2 years ago.
Yeah.
For 2 sold out shows. And Zach Bryan is a little bit bigger, but they wouldn't have booked him for that probably.
Right. So it is interesting. Like, and I think there's an element too, like if you're going to book Noah Khan, you're getting a professional show, right? If you book Zach Bryan, I don't think you know what you're going to get exactly. And again, maybe that's part of the appeal for fans like us, that there is a little bit of that ambiguousness, that enigma, that like you can't fully understand him, and maybe
there's way less pop and way more punk rock in the way he goes about his business,
without a doubt.
I'm sure there's a Springsteen corollary too, where you could compare Springsteen to somebody else of his era, where he's more of a independent punk rock way of doing it. All right, so you mentioned Pitchfork, which is what we wanted to talk about today as well.
Segue.
Yeah. A big theme of this show, something we've talked about a lot, is kind of the death of the web. And a lot of people, maybe you and I are also geeks, so we're very deep into all this stuff as well. You founded, I contributed in a major way to a sports website for a very long time, so we understand what it means to
literally have the logo on my sweatshirt, which was not planned. That's kind of funny.
Build an audience, mine the world for traffic, cash those checks selling ads. Well, the ad dollars went away, the traffic went away because search engines and now large language models stopped sending people. And even before that, when everybody started quote unquote microblogging on places like Twitter, they spent all their time there. They never left those places to go to the web, to read a blog post, to comment, to do all the different kinds of things. And so the reckoning has been out there. You've read about layoffs and unions being busted in writing shops, newspapers dying, and slowly but surely, every place that is going to survive will put up a paywall and charge you money. Like, there will be exceptions, but I mean, Rolling Stone's been charging money for years, and now Pitchfork is launching their paywall and looking to draw in subscribers as well.
Yeah. I really appreciate when all these ones announce it, like Pitchfork, the headline, Pitchfork is getting a subscription, ! They always like frame it about how exciting this is, and this is going to be so great for you, the reader. You're going to
they are giving you new functionality.
They are giving you new functionality. I mean, we'll get into whether that's a good functionality or not, but it's just funny that it's just always framed like, this is just going to be the best thing ever for you. And instead, it's just yet another monthly thing you have to now pay for. And as consumers, we're all getting exhausted by it. We all feel this nickel and dime effect of, and I think, it's sort of this moment that the internet is finally like becoming post-internet. The original spirit of what the internet was intended to be, this freedom of knowledge, information, everything was going to be open and free, and you could have access to everything. And it felt so great. You could read everything you wanted to read. You could, subscribe. You could watch any movie you wanted.
Download all those Metallica albums.
Yeah, download any music you wanted to. And we're getting to the point where we're going to be pretty much back to where we were prior to the internet, where you have to pick your consumption. So
it's funny that you mentioned that, by the way, because one of my jokes this week was I miss the elementary school kids showing up on my doorstep with a little bubble sheet so I could pick out the 5 magazines I was going to subscribe to for the year.
Yeah, and that's maybe people go door to door and sell subscriptions to paywalled websites now. But but that really is what this is. Like, you mentioned magazines. Well, the magazines all initially put everything online, and you could read every magazine. And now you're back to, you're going to have to pick which couple of magazines do you want to subscribe to. It used to be, I'm going to read every newspaper. Well, now it's back to, do you want Washington Post, New York Times, like Wall Street Journal? You got to pick which one you're going to put your money behind. And, listening wise, is it Spotify? Is it Apple Music? Is it Amazon? You pick which one you're going to subscribe to. Streaming is heading that way too, like where it used to be a model that you could pretty much have everything by subscribing to one or two places. Now there's 15 different streaming services, and they're all priced as such that you kind of are going to have to start picking, like, what do you want to, or sort of like streaming what you subscribe to, right? Like, oh, the new season of Stranger Things is out. Okay, let me cancel Disney and get Netflix, and then I'll watch that. And now that's done, well, the new Star Wars series is on Disney, so let me cancel Netflix and go back to Disney. Like, that might be.
And some of the ones that you're subscribing to now have tossed ads back in the mix. So you're not only paying for it, you're also paying for ads, or you're also watching ads. Well, I mean, even Peacock, I think we're currently with Peacock in anticipation of the Olympics. And so every show we watch on there, unless you're willing to pony up even more money, has ads in it.
And it's, well, hey, the good news for you, consumer, for just $3 more a month, you cannot have those ads. So they're doing that for you. This is a good thing for you, the consumer. You only have to pay $3 more, Craig, and you can have no ads.
I know you're joking, and I hear you, and I kind of agree with you. But also, at least we have the option to eliminate ads in streaming things.
So I pay for YouTube Premium.
I do too.
I don't have ads in YouTube. I also paid for the no ads on Amazon. So like, I did it, and I'm glad I don't have ads, but it also sucks that I have to pay extra for those things. So yeah. So it's one of the, like, would I rather have paid Pitchfork or no Pitchfork at all? Like, Pitchfork just go away? I'd rather have paid Pitchfork. I haven't subscribed yet.
Neither have I.
I don't know if or when I will.
What kinds of places are you subscribed to already? Not streaming TV, but more like
So Stereo Gum. I subscribe to Stereo Gum.
I do too.
I subscribe to Washington Post.
I dropped that one.
What else do I have?
I have the Wall Street Journal.
New York Magazine. I have
the Wall Street Journal, and then I cancel it for a month, and then I come back at $3 a month or whatever it is.
Yeah, I used to do that, and I just got tired of playing the game with them, so I finally just stopped.
I think we still have a Sirius XM subscription for one of our cars, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about publications. My fault.
Columbus Business First. That's a more work-related one, but
yeah, your company should cover that one. That one doesn't count.
Well, fair enough, but I do have a subscription. Then my ChatGPT, Claude, do those count?
What about Substacks? Do you have any Substack people?
I do. I have Dan Ozzie. Is that the only one I currently have? That might actually be the only one I currently have. I unsubscribed to a couple. I did for a while. I actually stopped his, and I don't remember why.
He wasn't writing much.
I think that might have actually been it. Yeah. By the way, this is a segue, but it is music related. I told you this. So Dan Ozzie does this really cool thing where once a year, he'll send out an email to all his subscribers and say, hey, if you want a postcard from me, send me your address. I'll send you a postcard and I'll write something on it. If you don't write anything, he'll just write whatever he wants to you. But if you give him a prompt, he'll write about whatever it is you prompt him on. So I was like, he's very in tight with The Armed, and that was my favorite album of last year. The Armed have a lot of mysterious lore behind them. One of the things is this mysterious Dan Green, this guy that supposedly writes all their music and is a behind the scenes guy, but he doesn't tour with the band and nobody knows what he looks like, and this and that. There's like just like a whole backstory and lore to this Dan Green. He's just a guy who works in a grocery store or something. And Dan Ozzie did a really great interview with The Armed when Perfect Saviors came out, in which he supposedly met Dan Green, and he talked about it. So anyways, so my prompt to Dan was simply, I said, you don't have to tell me if this is all a real thing or if this is a bit. All I want to know is, do you know if it's a bit or not? And I don't know if it's my place to spoil it, but I will tell you, he gave me an answer to, he knows whether or not it's a bit. And I don't know if it's my place to say, whether it is or not. So maybe I won't spoil what he actually told me about that. But I thought
I
that was,
think you should keep it to yourself. But
yeah.
also, if you are into music lore to that degree, pay for Dan Ozie's
And you
Substack.
ask him for yourself. Next time he does a postcard run, you can ask him yourself and find out whether or not the lore of Dan Green is true or not.
I'm so bad at remembering details and different things. I would never be able to think of a good question to ask him.
Okay.
But you're like such a historian. You're so good with the facts.
Yeah.
So anyway, the subscription to Pitchfork will now include you'll be able to read all the reviews. I think you're limited to 4 in a time frame with, it'll be protected by cookies.
Wait, real quick. Sorry.
All right.
What about the music subscriptions, like to the bands, not Substack, but
Patreons.
Are you still subscribed to any Patreons? I'm curious.
Yeah, well, I was with Foxing till the end. I'm still with Manchester Orchestra. And I think I'm still with Spanish Love Songs.
Yeah. So I was with Foxing. I was like, I almost wanted to just be like, you guys don't have to cancel it. Like I'll keep paying you guys money. Even though you're not making music anymore, I'd still be happy to pay you guys money. That's how much that music meant to me. But they didn't. And I felt the same way with Cloud Nothings. That was another one. I was subscribed to Cloud Nothings, and
I forgot about them.
They stopped their subscription.
They were on the bad platform.
Yes, exactly. And but it was like it was the same kind of feeling. I was like, you don't have to cancel. Like I'm more than happy to keep paying you guys money. Like
allow people to pay you money.
Yeah. But anyway, sorry. So you can go back to the Pitchfork.
No, it's okay. All right. So Pitchfork, so you'll be able to rate the records yourself. You'll be able to read all the reviews you want. If you're not subscribed, you'll be limited to a certain number per month.
4,
I believe
4, yeah. Which is not a lot.
No.
And that's the one that hits me the hardest, because I used to read not every review, but a lot of reviews of things I've never even heard of. Because Pitchfork has brilliant writers, and I used to just love the prose, like just listening to the way people write about music. I love that, the passion with which, because I've always felt like that's one thing. I used to feel like I was an okay writer, and writing about sports, I felt like I was a pretty above average writer. But when it comes to music, I've always felt like I struggle. Like there's like a weird filter that between the way I hear music and feel music and experience music, I don't know how to put words to that properly. And so I love reading people who are so good at it. And it's like, it's so inspirational to me. So I am going to miss, if I don't subscribe, I'm going to miss being able to just read that much, that now I'm going to have to just reserve it for the albums that I actually am curious, like the ones that I like, that I want to know what Pitchfork thinks about them.
Well, and I'm going to have to be thoughtful about what I click on Pitchfork, because how many times have you clicked on something because it looked like a cool album cover, and then you realize it's not in a genre that you even remotely care about?
All the time.
So now I've wasted a review on a click.
Yes. Yeah.
So I almost have to have my ducks in a row before I wind up at their URL.
Yeah.
Unless I'm going to subscribe. Which, I mean, chances are I'm going to subscribe, but I got to admit, I'm starting to get a little bit fatigued with all the different people. I don't feel like I feel like I support more people than I actually read.
Yeah.
I can't read as much as I support. And that's not a smart move. That's not a smart financial decision.
For sure.
But I feel a responsibility to kind of do it. But
yeah. The Tangle is another one that I pay for. That just popped in my head, and I wanted to mention it. I could have just said, well, the moment's passed, but seriously, guys, check out the Tangle. I highly recommend it. It's really good. But anyways,
the other thing that you'll be allowed to do as a subscriber at Pitchfork is you'll be able to comment, and you'll be able to give your own 0 to 10 number score rating to the record. So this is the first time that there's going to be a community score, which I think is really awesome. I think it's really great. Very much like Rotten Tomatoes, where you got the critic score and the audience score.
Yes and no. Here's the difference. With great power comes great responsibility. And Pitchfork has taken it upon themselves to define what every score you leave actually means. They've given us the 0, but Rotten Tomatoes doesn't have that. Rotten Tomatoes, people are just throwing out a number, like what it's.
Yes.
And so everybody's correct. Scale on Rotten Tomatoes is different.
You're missing my point, sir.
Oh,
Sure,
okay.
there are some differences, but you've got a professional score and an audience score.
Okay. Yes, that is similar. Yeah, you're right.
No,
Sorry.
you're right. Because some of the most confusing thing about Rotten Tomatoes is how some people are rating movies on a 4-star scale, some on a 5-star scale, some on a 0 to 10 scale, and somehow they're cataloging all these and making a decision
Yeah.
on whether it's a 94 or a 96, or a Geely and it's 22.
Yeah. And so it's like, how do you average that? I don't,
Yeah.
it's,
Well, and it'll be interesting to see if, I mean, because it's paywalled, they should keep a lot of the riffraff out, and they should keep themselves from being social media bombed, so
yeah,
that somebody
because
can,
people don't like the politics. So we better all go give it a 0.
right, or bomb a score on the good end, and guarantee that somebody who doesn't deserve it gets a 10
Yeah.
on the audience score. Presumably by having a paywall, you won't be able to do that. But I
I
wonder if they'll
think,
also put some algorithms in place to kind of take out the top and the bottom to
yeah,
really.
I don't remember anymore. Who is the review? Who was the review that Pitchfork famously did that was just a video of the monkey drinking its own pee?
I don't
What
remember.
was the album? Well, whatever it is, you could, because we can rate historical albums, we really should get a movement to get all the fans to go give it a 10.
Wasn't it a band like the Vines or one of those?
It wasn't the Vines, but it was something like that. It was the mid 2000s, that scene. Yeah.
All right. So the other interesting thing is, in order to give people a guide on how to hopefully get them to score, Pitchfork released not only their numbers, but kind of their ranges and how they expect, what the numbers mean to them. And probably in hopes of getting other people to do that. So, and you and I found this really interesting. So I thought maybe we should go through it with everybody here. I'm going to share it for the people who are on YouTube.
And not just interesting, but well done. Like, I was surprised at how much I agreed with their scales and like understood what they meant by all of these. I was very impressed with the thought that they put into this.
And watch me. Oh, I'm gonna open it just enough so that the ads don't show.
There you
Take
go.
that, Pitchfork. All right, so we'll start at the top. I almost think it's more interesting to start at the bottom. But
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
What do you
can
think?
do it that way? Yeah. So from bottom up,
0 to 0.9 is worthless.
I love that. Just one word, worthless. That like a monkey drinking its own pee.
Can you think of any records that you would have even put in this category? I don't know that. Go ahead.
Vanilla Ice's rap rock album.
Okay.
I don't remember what it was called. Like it's weird because like I'm getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. Like you could argue that it was just terrible, but like I'm not sure that it isn't worthless. I don't know what it added, like who was looking for that, what it added to society or anything like that.
Which brings us to the next level up. Terrible and symptomatic of some kind of larger problem in music or the world, which like I think that's even more interesting to me than worthless as a descriptor.
Yeah, because you're carrying this is when you're carrying a flag for something in the wrong direction.
Yeah. And honestly, like when I can't tell you the last time I listened to something that I found completely worthless.
Yeah.
All right, so that's 1.0 to 1.9. 2.0 to 2.9 is terrible.
Just terrible. So you're not carrying the flag for it. You're just terrible of your own volition.
3.0 to 3.9 is really bad, competent, and thoughtless.
That thoughtless word is harsh.
It's really harsh.
That's almost more harsh than worthless in some ways, like thoughtless. Because like, gosh, you'd like to think almost every album has thought behind it.
So this is where I was kind of heartened by the scores as we head on up, where I felt like all those middle class scores that I read on Pitchfork over the years aren't quite as bad as what I thought based on these descriptors, even though whatever. 4.0 to 4.9 is pretty bad.
Yeah.
And then 5.0 to 5.5 is not very good, but not a total disaster. So now we're starting to find some redeeming quality in things, even if we don't like it.
Yeah. This is stuff that's, you're like, maybe there's something in there that's kind of interesting to you, but not like not noteworthy enough that you're going to share it with friends, but
All right, now this is where the shock for me started to happen. 5.6 to 5.9, decent record. A few things going for it, but a handful of major issues overwhelm the experience. So like, I don't know that 5.6 would ever occur to me as being decent record. But if we live by this category, it kind of is helpful for me to think about some of the past reviews that really pissed me off.
Well, because a lot of times they would write, the way they would write about a 5.6 would sound a lot more negative than decent record, usually.
Or
not
better.
always, but usually.
Or better, where you'd be like, well, why didn't it get a 7.2 then?
Well, which also would happen sometimes, yes.
Yeah. So that brings us to 6.0 to 6.5 is pretty good, not great. Some of unavoidable issues, but interesting. Fans of the band or genre will get the most out of it.
Like, I feel like this is where you're getting a lot of the late era Pearl Jam albums. Like,
yeah,
I would say pretty good, not great. The unavoidable issues is that, age and whatever. But interesting. And fans of the band will get the most out of it. And that's so true of whether we're talking about like an album like Lightning Bolt, Backspacer.
Well, and this is also where I think we're getting into a genre territory where if it's not the most respectable subgenre of rock or whatever, this is where, and when I say that, I'm thinking firmly of we're in Sleep Token territory.
Okay.
So Sleep Token is amazingly entertaining. They're very good songwriters, but they're dressing in masks. It's like LARPing metal.
I'm thinking of Sleep Token as more of not very good, but not a total disaster, or else pretty bad.
No, because you're fans of the band or genre, and they're selling out basketball arenas.
That is true. That sentence does hold water for Sleep Token for sure.
Yeah. Well, and whether or not
the pretty good, I don't think I would call Sleep Token pretty good. I know we disagree on them, but
yeah, I think you don't like it, but I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that I listen to that you send me, especially the hardcore punk, where I don't like it, but I can tell it's pretty good.
Sure.
So anyway,
but the same is true for you as well, of things you send me that I would definitely say are pretty good, but maybe I don't like. But I'm just saying Sleep Token for me is not one of those.
Fair enough.
I do not like Sleep Token.
Okay. All right. So 6.6 to 6.9 is good record, a few issues, but worth your attention if you're into the band or genre. Maybe starts strong and fades a little by the end, includes a few songs that don't move the needle, but also has a handful of outstanding moments. Now we're into a handful of outstanding moments.
This is where, like, so many albums that finish in my 35 to 50 range.
Yes.
This is where they live. This is the meat and potatoes of a lot of things I listen to when it comes to new music in a year. I would say that this is really where a lot of them fall.
All right. Now we're into, this is like yours and my territory in our top 10.
This is our Discord.
Yeah.
DMs is a billion albums that are going to fall in this era right here.
Yeah, very good record. Recommend checking it out. Hardly a dull moment, a great hang. Maybe plays it safe, but executes everything very well. Maybe takes some risks, but doesn't land everything perfectly. This is where I like it. It's really good. There's some amazing moments, like maybe they should have rethought the spoken word tracks, or the ending wasn't right, or they lost a little bit of steam. They took a chance on a something that falls outside of the genre and they shouldn't have.
How many times have you and I sent a link to an album to each other and said, I'm not sure how much you'll like this, but it's definitely worth checking out?
Yes.
Like, that's this territory. Like they literally say recommend checking it out, and that is language that you and I use all the time for things.
So this next territory, 7.6 to 7.9, is a place that was kind of like shocking when I was reading the words. Excellent record, highly recommend, best in class, that's in quotes, best in class for its genre, not a bad song on it.
So I would have thought that description would have meant a higher score.
Yes.
Like when I would see if I don't know, if like the Foxing self-titled album got a 7.6, I would be pretty devastated. Like, oh my gosh, it's so much better than that. And well, I mean, it is, but like that, but honestly, like that description, I wouldn't be like annoyed if somebody said that about the Foxing self-titled album. Oh, it's excellent record. Highly recommend it. Best in class for its genre. Not a bad song on it. Like, yeah, that's all true.
And we would read that, and then we'd see the score and be like, why is this? Why is there a mismatch between the words and the score?
Yeah. But I also like the highly recommended here, because there is a step up in our language when we share music with each other too. We're like, okay, this one is one you have to check. This is an important one to check out. You know, we have escalators that we use when we really want to get each other's attention, that like, this isn't just one of those ones where, you know, I think you should at least just check it out. This is no, I think you're really going to like this. You need to listen to this.
Yeah. All right. I realized I should have zoomed in on the words a little bit. All right. 8 to 8.5. Essential listening among the best records of the year, shows a mastery of craft or taps into the sublime, feels a part of the zeitgeist, steps out of its genre, takes big risks that pay off. That's 8 to 8.5.
Yeah. So now we're getting into contenders for top 10 albums of the year for us. These are the ones that we're debating whether they are going to make the top 10 or not.
Yeah. And now 9.1 to 9.9, a monument, an instant classic.
You missed 8.6.
Oh yeah, 8.6 to 9.0. A major statement, worthy of your time and energy, no matter your taste. Transcends genre, claims new ground, a total and intentional work of art, possesses an aura that makes it vital to its genre, its era, or the artist's career.
Yeah. And see, like, this is the ones when we talk about albums, I say, oh, this is definitely going to be in my top 10. I know at the end of the year, this is going to be in my top 10. That's kind of this territory.
Yeah. Although it's interesting because my top 10 ends up being stuff that I could even throw it in the high sevens, the low to mid eights on this scale. But I'm just such a big fan of the genre and the band that I overrate it based on, you know, it's going to finish higher on my scale than it maybe seems like it should deserve based on this. Because not everything could be a 10.0.
Right. That can definitely happen. I'm just saying the ones that I talk about in a way where I'm like, oh, this is definitely going to be a top 10 on this scale means I would give it like an 8.6 to 9.0.
Yeah, for sure. All right, 9.1 to 9.9, a monument, an instant classic, sounds ahead of its time, sounds timeless, immediate belongs in the canon. Entire genres could be created in its wake.
And these are things that you and I will typically say something like red alert to each other. These are the things where it's like, okay, this is an easy top 5. Like, if there's 5 albums better than this year, this is going to be the best year in music ever. When I say things like that's where these albums live.
And we don't get a lot of these.
No, we don't.
I don't think we necessarily get one every year.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know. I feel like a lot of my top 5s, I kind of feel like they fall in this range. But
so I think about last year, and I don't want to talk about The Armed. That one's too hard. But something like Greet Death, where it was just perfect for them. But did it push the ball forward in terms of redefining them as a band, or was it just the very best of what they could do?
Well, I suppose it's interesting if it needs to hit on every sentence in these descriptions. Sure. Because to me, that Greet Death album is a monument. It is an instant classic. I don't know about sounding ahead of its time, but it sounds
entire genres would not be created in its wake.
But I agree with that. But it immediately belongs in the canon. I would say that's
all right.
true.
So you're helping me because it doesn't have to check all the boxes.
Yeah. Right.
It just has to check some of the boxes.
And I think most of the boxes, but not all of them.
All right. And then a 10.0 is a masterpiece, one of the best albums of all time, will be culturally and aesthetically important many years from now in some way. And I think you and I both agree that we don't get one of these every single year.
Definitely not. In fact, I think we only came up with, of the last 5 or 6 years, we only came up with, I think, a couple that we were like the Foxing self-titled, I would give to here. Turnstile Glow On would be an easy 10 for me. And then I said probably Spanish Love Songs would probably be.
And I think close. if we worked at Pitchfork, we would lose the argument on both Spanish Love Songs and Foxing we might win on Turnstile. And then I think you probably have to go back to Deaf Heaven, Sunbather.
Sunbather, yeah. Sunbather's easy in this one for sure.
But that 10.0, I mean, for me personally, I agree with you on those 10.0s. But if there were more people at the table, I think we'd have to settle for something in the high nines on some of those.
Probably right. Yeah, probably right. Well, because again, like, will the Foxing self-titled album be culturally and aesthetically important many years from now? I don't know that that's true. They probably weren't a big enough band. But for you and me, it's without a doubt true.
Well, in the moment that we first heard it, it could have been.
Yeah. And like, but like, to me, that's what like sears it in that moment. Like that Foxing album, like just represents that moment so well that that's why I feel that it is culturally and aesthetically important and will be forever. But like that taste isn't universal. That's more our taste.
Well, and at some point, you know, your feelings don't matter and mine don't matter. Either it was or it wasn't.
You're right. And that's why you were saying like the Turnstile Glow On is clearly going to be more culturally important.
And Sunbather launched 1,000 bands, maybe a million.
Yeah. So would there be agriculture if it wasn't for Sunbather? You know, I don't think so. Not the way that they currently exist.
No. So anyway, I'm looking forward to this. I think I will probably subscribe at least at the beginning. I think depending on how the back end works in terms of when I score something, if I can keep track of my scores on their website, that would be something that's really valuable to me.
I was going to say, maybe we should start scoring on that scale the albums we talk about, like Zach Bryan. So where would you put Zach Bryan on that list?
Yeah, let me bring it back up. I'll share it again.
Yeah,
just so that everybody can see.
Because we know it's not going to be above 8.
I think we're definitely in the 7.0 to 7.5. Very good record. Recommend checking it out. Hardly a dull moment. A great hang. Maybe plays it safe, but executes everything well. See, and I think this is where Zach Bryan it sounds like another Zach Bryan record. This was the Lonely People with Power problem too. Deaf Heaven just being the best version of Deaf Heaven. Right. It's ever Deaf Heaven, but not necessarily pushing the ball forward.
So I think it is firmly in that 7.0 to 7.5. I think almost every sentence there applies to that album. So I'm going to give it a 7.2.
And what did Pitchfork give it?
I don't remember.
All right.
I don't remember.
I'm gonna guess Pitchfork gave it somewhere in the 6.6 to 6.9 range.
Probably yes.
I haven't listened to it as much as you have, and we both arrived in that same zone, so I've just ride with your 7.2.
I'm gonna see if I can quickly here pull this up. Here's the review, 7.0, and the reader's score is 7.0. So
man, look at that.
Look at that. These descriptions are good. I know. I feel good about that. So
the only problem is I will never commit these to memory. I will always have to bring this up as a reference.
But I think that's kind of the point. And I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
I think we should be using it. I might print it out and laminate it and have it with me everywhere I go.
So you and I have not had a lot of new music to listen to since the new year started. Obviously, we both talked about Zach Bryan. As long as recommendation corner is on the shelf, I think we should pick up the mantle for a little bit. I know I'm putting you on the spot. Do you have one that you'd like to recommend this week? I have multiple.
Does it have to be an album?
I guess not.
Can it be a single?
Sure.
Because I'm going to recommend something that probably not a lot of people would naturally come across, but one of my favorite bands in the world is Filth is Eternal. They have a new album coming out in March, and they released their first single. And so Filth is Eternal was a band out of Seattle, or the Seattle area, Pacific Northwest, who took like the sludgiest parts of grunge and put it through a little bit more of a hardcore / punk lens. And that blending of those two styles with the female vocalist was so good that their last album, Find Out, was my favorite album of the year in 2023, 2024, 24 maybe. It doesn't matter. But anyways, so they put out their first single for the new album, and it is quite different sounding from what they've done. It is way more melodic. It is, the guitars are not, the tone is not as abrasive. It's a much more approachable sound. Somebody, I don't know if it was Stereo Gum or Pitchfork, likened it a little bit to what Scowl did with their last album. Now, this does not sound like Scowl. I don't want to set that expectation, but I get the point of what they mean by that. It's like, it still essentially is, it does sound like Filth is Eternal, but it's got just a little bit of a more approachable sound. And I didn't know how much I liked it on first listen because it was so surprising to me. But I've listened to this song 50 times, and now that I like really know it and know what they're doing, and I've really picked up on the hooks in it and the vocal melody and stuff, I'm like, okay, now I'm in on it and I really like it. And so I'm excited to check out their new album. So
all right, well, I've got two to mention. One is an album that's all the way out, and the other one is, I've heard the first two songs and now I cannot wait to hear the full thing. First one is straight ahead shoegaze, but it's best in class shoegaze. It's a band called Blanket. The album is called True Blue. It came out January 16th. And I've listened to it probably 4 or 5 times. And it's one of these things. I don't think it pushes shoegaze forward, but the way they pull it off and the competence and how quality the melodies are and the songwriting is, it's absolutely going to be one of the best shoegaze records of the year, if I had to guess.
For sure. I've listened to it a couple times. I told you, I was like, Blanket could not be a more perfect band name for this kind of shoegaze. Like, it is like covering up in a warm blanket, man. Like, that's what really good shoegaze is.
Yeah. And so the Spotify algorithm delivered on another one. There's a band out of the UK. They describe themselves as slowcore, and they're called Death Crash, all one word. They do it all lowercase. They've got a new record coming out at the end of February, on February 27th, called Somersaults. And their first single was Somersaults, I think, but the song Triumph is the one that really got me. And so they don't sound like Pedro the Lion, but I believe that I love slowcore because of bands like Pedro the Lion. And so, like, think of that plinky guitar and that plodding tempo and that kind of style of songwriting, even though it doesn't sound exactly like them. So
okay.
Death Crash, I think people will dig that at the end of February.
And I have not listened to that one yet. So,
well, and there are only 2 tracks out, so we gotta wait. But it's nice to have stuff to look forward to. It's another slow start to the year.
Well, is it though? I
mean, we're on the 200th day of January.
Yeah. But I mean, we already have Zach Bryan and ASAP Rocky out.
You know what?
Like, that's Andrew, two
hang on,
pretty
stop.
highly
You're
anticipated
100%
artists.
right. I'm wrong. This is me feeling like it's been 6 weeks since Christmas, and it hasn't.
Yeah, and
it just feels like that to me.
That is true. That is true. But we get ready because February has some monster releases.
Can you believe I just called it a slow start to the year, and we're only on January 22nd?
It's amazing. But yeah. I can believe it because it does feel that way.
Yeah. All right. Well, please let us know what you're listening to. The comments that we had on the year-end list, our top 10 of the year, gave us some ideas of stuff that you're listening to and the stuff that we recommended that you liked. And we love that feedback. So you can check us out on YouTube, Album of Record on YouTube, albumofrecord.com, and on all the socials. Thank you so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time. It's been the Album of Record podcast.